What's up, everybody? We got the second half of Ironheart this week, and the Big M is finally here in the MCU. Let's dive in. We've got to wait just a bit to get into that big character reveal here, but his presence is felt from the get-go as we saw Parker and Cousin John pulling a job in the past that ended in pure chaos, that then fades into John's funeral in the present, and it definitely felt like Mephisto, the Big M, told Parker a piece of the hood is gone, which is never confirmed in the show, but I feel like it's either that or he's just straight up told him that Riri did it. Regardless, there's a scene later between Riri and Natalie where Shuri is brought up and kind of just all of Wakanda forever, and so with that, the war between Wakanda and Telokan is brought up too. Now, I could be reaching on this, but it feels like that conflict being mentioned in back-to-back projects, the other being Thunderbolts, Val mentioned it in her trial, is an implication of a greater importance in the near future of the MCU, Doomsday, and Secret Wars. That's what I'm talking about, but we'll see. Back to the show, Ezekiel Stane is arrested after Riri left his tech behind at the job, and now he's responsible for destroying his father's image. But, like we know, his father was no saint. He knew his father as the Ironmonger, and he reaches his tipping point in his inner battle of stopping himself from becoming Obadiah Jr. Riri obviously goes and pays him a visit while he's locked up too, and this scene brought a realization to me about the show. As much as I love Anthony Ramos, and I do, this show would have been at least 5 times better if Alden Ehrenreich was the main villain of said show. But as I had that thought, the show then followed it up with an amazing scene for him in the hood, so it kind of balanced out. Then as Riri looks to fight magic with magic, the show introduces Zelma Stanton into the MCU. She's got history with Doctor Strange as she was raised at Kamar-Taj, and that helped it create a fake out for the fans who followed the rumors. Since she was there, she knew the details of Strange versus Caecilius and also Dormammu, so when she realizes the energy isn't of this realm, that's who she thinks of. Also, that fake out works so well because that's who the Hood is actually connected to in the comics, but he's not the only character who's made deals with other villains. In the comics, while Zelma has her history with Doctor Strange, both working with him and serving as a teacher at Strange Academy, she also bent the knee, or at least didn't fight back, and went to be a teacher at Doom Academy when he became Sorcerer Supreme. Anyway, Parker pays Zeke a visit just like Riri did, and that's because he's going to be her replacement. I figure the way Hood sees it is, if she needs to go get this guy's help to do our jobs, why not just go straight to the source myself and eliminate the middleman just like he did with Rampage, well, kind of, just replacing her really, so same but different, but still same. While that's going on, Riri experiments on the piece of the hood that she has, and this scene just felt so weird with the way it's edited to show every single time she writes down and crosses out an idea, but then it ends up being like 5 ideas. I think it would have been cool, or at least cooler, in my opinion, if they had just, had her write down one idea, cross it out, and then we see her just going crazy, experimenting on all different kinds of things, and then all of a sudden, the board is full of failed ideas. That feels a little more in line with what I want to see. That's a minor complaint though, as the more important thing that bothered me was how the show failed miserably once again this week with its AI commentary. They had another perfect scene set up here once again with Xavier seeing AI Natalie for the first time and filled it with poor dialogue and underwhelming performances. It's a damn shame. Then the episode closed with the Hood turning Ezekiel into his own weapon after breaking him out of prison and also sending the gang for Riri's head. And I hate to complain so much towards the end here, but I'm just being honest, the editing going from Hood solo to the whole gang was so weird, and I'd assume most definitely a result of extensive ADR during the 2 years of post-production on this show. But overall, I thought that was just an okay episode that I don't have a strong opinion on one way or the other. I'm just kind of mixed on it. Alden Ehrenreich delivered like I hoped he would last week following that setup, as he was awesome, so that was a win, but like I said, overall, just kind of meh. Moving on to episode 5, though, we picked up as the Hood's gang go after Riri and her suit. She's at White Castle with Zelma, who was saying that she's 50% confident that this is Dormammu's magic once again, but that conversation is interrupted by yet another disappointing fight for the Blood siblings. But I will give them credit here, the show, the fight coordinators, for getting creative, and the end of the fight with the truck flip and Ironmonger 2 was dope as fuck. which, speaking of Mr. Ezekiel Stane, this show was kind of perfect, at least in this back half, when Alden Ehrenreich and Dominique Thorne were sharing scenes, as it's insane, the gap between their stuff and the rest of the show. I mean, it's like I said, I think it would have been better if he was the main villain instead of Anthony Ramos, but they're on a whole different tier, and so were their fights for the most part, I'd say. Not 100%, but they had better fights, and I was, at the very least, very happy with these two in these final 3 episodes. But then we go back to the Hood's gang, who break up like a boy band pillow fighting till the end. We also saw the Hood's scars here reach his face, and this is where I became certain that it was Mephisto and not Dormammu, because one of the things that Velma was talking about was Caecilius's purple scars, and here the Hoods are red with his tattoos going over them. Anyway, Ezekiel tries skipping town, but after spazzing out on his bitch neighbor, who deserved it, Hood stops him and takes over using the admin control that he's got over the biotech in his body. He's going to be his new secret weapon, and he needs him to finish the job that he and his cousin failed, what they've been building to with these other heists taking over his father's estate, which I thought was a decent twist. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say flat out good. I didn't think the execution was great, but I think the idea behind this twist was great. But the episode wraps things up at the garage as Riri builds her new suit with the car that her and her dad worked on, just as I predicted, and then Zelma infuses it with magic, but at a cost. Natalie was at cost, and just like the paramedics were late all of those years ago getting to the garage for her and Gary, Riri is a second too late downloading the AI Natalie to save her friend, losing her for the second time. I thought that was another so-so episode here, as Alden Ehrenreich was a star once again, but he's only got so much to do as the secondary villain. But like I said, the Hood family twist was actually decent, and I thought this episode finished much stronger than episode 4, so I'd say I do lean more positive on this one than the first one this week. With that being said, let's get into the finale, which started by showing us the rest of that failed heist with Parker and Cousin John. That was the night he met Mephisto when he was escaping, the night that he was saved by him in Mephisto's eyes, and we go into his realm too at the start of the episode. Casting Sacha Baron Cohen in this role sounded cool at the time, but it was definitely a bold choice, and it ended up paying off big time, as the comedic genius, like Sasha, has the sense to infuse just enough of that genius into his dramatic performance and into his take on the devil that it's perfect. Also, with it officially being Mephisto and not Dormammu, I did want to touch on Zelma's mistake, because she does actually tell us why she's wrong, just not directly. Obviously, her and her mother left Kamertage, she dropped out of the academy, but while they were there, she learned of the Battle of Strange and Caecilius and Dormammu too, and that's a major event, obviously, so it's day one shit, so that's why she's making this assumption that it's going to be Dormammu and not going further and realizing it's Mephisto. But while we're on the topic of Kamertage and the sorcerers, I'm not trying to be a hater with this, I just think that this whole Mephisto introduction and the Hood Mephisto stuff might have worked better in a Strange Academy show or movie. Keep the Hood and everything, just go after the students instead of Ironheart here, but at the same time, if you did that, it's like it would almost make more sense to just do the comic storyline with Dormammu in the Hood, but whatever. Riri goes to confront Parker and is met by Ezekiel first, who really needed more screen time in this show. They go at it. This fight, it wasn't quite as good as their first fight. That's why I was a bit hesitant when I said their fights were better, but it wasn't terrible, and eventually she's able to free him from the Hood's control. Their beef's not over though, as he says he'll find her, and it makes one wonder if, and this is just speculation here, but maybe he'll pop back up in Vision Quest. I mean, we do know that Todd Stashwick's character, he's going after Stark Tech. Maybe that's what uh Joe Ezekiel, what he's going to be doing after this show. Anyway, she makes her way to Parker after that, where we got probably my favorite fight of the show. The effects or makeup, whatever they did on Anthony Ramos, were epic here, as Hood fell deep into his deal with the devil. His magic bullets, which I wish we did see more of at the end of the day, but they were cool nonetheless here too, and he survives the fight but loses the Hood. Then, since it was Riri who nabbed the Hood, she walks away from the fight and straight into Mephisto's realm, just like Parker did all those years ago. He wants her to replace Parker, just like Parker wanted Zeke to replace Riri, but Mephisto's not one that you want to be making deals with. In the MCU, he said he's made deals with the entire Forbes Top 100 list, 14 Kings, three popes, and Ringo Starr, and I'm sure there's more by the way, but Ringo Starr, that was a great addition at the end. That was funny. However, the episode ends in crazy fashion as Riri joins Team Mephisto. She makes her deal with the devil, and I'm sure people, "Oh, why is he saying the devil?" I know he's not the devil, he's a devil. It's so much easier and it sounds better to just say the devil, so that's what I'm saying. Deal with it. But regardless, even though that she knows exactly what it just did to Parker Robbins the Hood, she makes the deal anyway. For one, she does probably think that she'll just handle it better than Parker did. That's very much in character for her, but also her trauma continues to blind her, and so it was honestly just an easy manipulation for Mephisto. The question is, what show or movie is it setting up? It could be setting up Mephisto for Doctor Strange 3. I mean, we did have a champion, a young Avenger in Doctor Strange 2, so maybe we'll have one in Doctor Strange 3. I don't think so, but maybe as the credit scene where Parker goes to Zelma for help does kind of indicate that maybe they're going to see the Sorcerer Supreme, which is Wong but still Strange involved. Essentially, he and Riri switched places as he's got the deal with the devil, and now Parker is trying to build himself back up, and maybe they're folding their Strange Academy plans into Strange 3. That's kind of the only way I see this working, but just a thought. The obvious option to me, and the one that it probably will end up being, is that he's going to be the villain for this Champions project, and I do believe they've landed on it being a show. He could go after Wanda's boys in that, he could go after Kate Bishop and her mess of a family in that. There's plenty of trauma on that team, but there's also a world, and this is pretty likely too, where it's setting up Midnight Suns, and I don't necessarily know how Riri fits into that team in that world, but the setup left me more curious to say the least, and I mean, I guess Punisher fits in, so an iron suit could fit in there too somehow. I also just thought the finale, episode 6 specifically, not all three episodes, but episode 6 was damn good. It was definitely the best of the final three episodes, and honestly, it wasn't even close. I do think, and sorry to jump around here, I'm trying to wrap things up, but there is another option for future Mephisto appearances, and it's Black Panther 3, not only because of Coogler's connections to this, but because he just made Sinners and seemed to have a great time doing so, so maybe he's going to want to do some horror in the third installment into that trilogy. But you can also just bring Riri back to Wakanda, and Coogler gets to handle her again, which I think is good for the character, and then you can bring Denzel in as a Chebe who's tied to Mephisto, but the point is, overall, they've got choices for where they want to go with their version of the devil. And so that's going to do it for my Ironheart finale breakdown. It definitely wasn't the worst thing in the world, but it's far from the best of Marvel TV like WandaVision and Loki Season 2. Let me know what you thought about the show, though, down in the comments below. Make sure you have a great day.